What is happening, people, and welcome everybody to In the End Zone UK. Thank you for joining our weekly American football podcast. I'm your host, Dom, and today we'll be looking back on the final game week in the NFL. That's NFL Week 18, the final week of football. It's the end of regular season football, and that means the end of football in general for those teams that did not make the playoffs. We'll be talking about those teams, and we'll be talking about some of the teams that also did make the playoffs a little bit later on. So before we get to any of that, let me introduce you to the other half of the In the End Zone team. Across the mic from me, it's my co-host, it's Big Dave. Big Dave, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Mega foggy here today, but no, we're good to go. Talk about last time we were talking about the Giants for a couple of months, so
it is, yeah.
Couldn't be more happy. Get to sit and watch some football this weekend. Playoffs have started. Zero stress. Good to go.
That's it. It's the first time in a long time that I'll have been sat there not watching the playoffs with any implications for the Seahawks, which feels like a big letdown, but also feels like a little bit of a relief. Like you say, you can just sit back and enjoy some good football being played. So hopefully that's what we'll be able to do. This week, I'm calling this episode Playoffs, Ready, Aim, Fire. And that is because we are shooting directly into the off-season, directly into the playoff window, but also because some people have been on the receiving end of a firing squad this week. And before we get to any of the games, I think it's appropriate that we talk about some individuals that may have been fired from their positions in the NFL. And I'm talking head coaches. There's been a fair few, haven't there, Dave?
There has. Some very close to home.
Indeed. Let's talk about who they are and whether we think that they're warranted. But firstly, for the listeners out there, at the end of a regular football season in the NFL, if your team's not done very well, there's a chance that your coach is going to be under some scrutiny. And these guys that we're about to talk about have all been let go within a matter of hours of the season ending, some within a matter of days, and some are still potentially going to be let go in the near future. But the ones that we can confirm as of today are the following. So Dave, probably no surprise here, but David Culley of the Texans has been let go. So head coach of the Texans, Houston Texans, he's been let go. Any surprises there? Anything that you think needs to be spoken about? I think it's a pretty standard drills.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that is that I think they played quite hard for him. They weren't ever, I don't know, I mean, I didn't watch them as much as obviously I watched the Giants, but I don't ever remember looking at the scores when they've been absolutely hammered or put like an embarrassing show on like we have the last couple of weeks. He didn't have Deshaun Watson. So with Deshaun Watson, they've probably got a far better record.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably not that bad of a coach. I mean, I think he was only ever an interim guy there anyway, so.
Yeah, definitely doesn't carry the same implications as some of the rest of them. But I'd agree with you, is the fact that the Texans looked like they were going to be a steaming pile of dog turd coming into the season. They've actually outplayed what my expectation was, even though it wasn't fantastic to start with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The next one, much closer to home for you, Dave, and that is Mr. Joe Judge from the Giants has been let go. So let's put some time aside to talk about this one. I know that you've been a big fan of him since he came to the Giants. Maybe not for his winning record, but for the things outside of that, intangibles that he's brought to the team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I think with 3 games to go in the season, he was coming back next year. But because of how poorly they played, and we've not had a good quarterback, but it just seems like the entire team, like we scored 1 touchdown in the last 3 weeks. And I don't want to talk about him too much because he may be reappearing later on. But what I'll say is, I do think we should have got rid of him, because if we're bringing a new general manager, then I would want that general manager to have the pick of whomever he wants. And I'm not just talking about, I'm glad that, so he's gone. So Joe Judge has gone, the head coach. We sacked Garrett halfway through the season.
Mm-hmm.
The general manager's gone. His assistant's probably going to go. I think they're getting rid of all the scouts, all the coordinators. The only one
It's
I'll
a
probably
total
keep
fresh
is
start, isn't
Patrick. Yeah, I think so, and it needs to be. I think if you're going to bring a general manager in, then he should be the one that's allowed to pick his head coach, and his head coach should be allowed to one that helps him build the staff.
Yeah.
So I don't want him to have. I wouldn't want him to come in, the new general manager, and have Joe Judge forced on him for a year, and then he goes. I did like him. I thought that he was, and I think the players liked him ultimately. But if you're not winning, you're not winning.
No, exactly.
Time to get gone. It's a business of winning. The Giants is one of the oldest franchises in the NFL. You know, in the last 20 years, or 20. In the last 30 years, we've got 4 Super Bowls. Not many teams can say that they've got 4 Super Bowls, let alone 1.
Yeah.
So,
that's a fair one. And yeah, if I'm being honest now, because like we talk about the Giants, talk about the Seahawks a lot, and I think that both of us have got a mutual respect for our franchises, but I think now Joe Judge is gone, I can be a little bit honest and say that I didn't think he was a bad bloke. I think he seems like he's got his head screwed on, and like you said, the stuff about players liking him is obviously, it's a big part of being a coach. You've got to have that morale with your team, but I never really saw anything play style from the Giants that obviously was influenced by Joe Judge that really made me think that he was worth it. Do you know what I mean? Like as much as, you know, you got to have faith in your head coach and say, yeah, I like him. I think he's good. He could be good. I think I always saw that he had the potential to be. But I think this is absolutely the right move for the Giants, because I don't think I saw much worse football this year.
no, and fucking I watch every game of it. It's he was dealt. There was nobody in the league who was dealt with shittier hand than him.
Yeah.
He Gettleman should have gone at the end of last year. If when you'd sacked Pat Shurmur, his third head coach, he should have gone. So at least you'd have brought in a new gem, and then maybe Joe was them. He had Jason Garrett forced on him by the ownership.
Yeah.
So you already can't pick your offensive coordinator that you've had for 2.5 seasons. We've had the most injuries in football this year, so he's not had a great situation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he'll probably end up going back to New England as a special teams coach. He'll definitely be in football again, because I think he's got the right temperament for it. But yeah, I think he just needs a stronger supporting cast than what he had. But yeah, no, unquestionably there were some ropey decisions, and like I say, we're going to get into some of them later on. But
cool. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a big hit, but it's an exciting one for the Giants with the prospects that you've got in the draft and all that kind of thing to start afresh. So, waving Joe Judge off into the night, and we know that he'll stay within football. He's good enough for that, for sure. The next one was a really questionable one. I think probably the most questionable of the lot, and that was Brian Flores, the coach of the Miami Dolphins, being let go. I didn't see that one coming.
No, I mean, I think this is more a personal thing from what I've heard, that he doesn't get on with the GM and some of the ownership, and they had to pick one. So they pick the general manager, and they've got rid of
the
Flores.
Giants had a 7 or 8 game winning streak this year at some point
The
in
Dolphins.
the NFL. Sorry, not the Giants, the Dolphins, yeah.
I think they were like on a 7-game losing streak, and then I think they won 8 of the last 9.
Yeah.
Which is good.
It's not bad.
But then you look at, why did they have a 7-game losing streak at the start of the season?
That's true. Yeah, I suppose you've got to look at it as a full picture. But irrespective, you know, he did some good things this season. You know, they beat the Patriots. They did manage to get themselves into a winning streak, which is it's not something that happens very often. So there was some consistency there. Maybe he's just not had the faith, like you say, from the upper management in the building. But he could be a fantastic coach for somebody else, or even a coordinator if that's the route that he goes down, because to take somebody like Tua to an 8-game win streak, it's definitely not a bad thing.
No, yeah, he somebody's obviously going to snap him up. Even if it's as a defensive coordinator again, before he then rotates back into being a head coach. Somebody's.
Would you want him? Would you want him at the Giants?
As a head coach? No.
Head coach? No.
No. I put that on that post the other day, but
yeah.
No, we're interviewing like assistant GMs at the Chiefs, at the Bills, at the Ravens, and whoever if we take the Chiefs assistant GM, he's probably bringing Bieniemy to be the head coach, isn't he?
That'd be nice.
And if we get I can't remember the guy's name from the Bills. I want the one from the Bills, but
Right.
if we get him, we're obviously going to get their offensive coordinator as the head coach. So I want somebody who's going to throw the ball downfield.
Okay.
Because they're kind of stuck with Daniel Jones, so the guy from the Bills seems to make the most sense.
Very similar players, Jones and Allen, in terms of stature and whatnot, and the mobility. So you could definitely get something good out of him. The next one is the one that I wanted to see the most this year, and that was Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings being let go. It was inevitable in my mind, even though he's probably been there a season too long anyway. But with the talent that they've got on their roster, to not even make the playoffs this year, that's got to be a coaching issue. Yeah,
they've plateaued, I think, haven't they? They don't seem to. They're not getting any worse, but they don't seem to be getting any better. They're just plateaued at whatever level they've got. Kirk Cousins had a great season this year, so they've had Dalvin Cook from it. They can't really say they've not had Dalvin Cook for most of it because he's been here for most of the season, which is good for him. But no, they need some young blood in there. I think who's got a bit more of a forward thinking. I think he's a defensive guy as well, Zimmer. So maybe they need an offensive guy in there.
Historically, anyway, he's been a very defensively minded, reserved coach. And when you've got players like Thielen and Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, you can afford to be aggressive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So maybe they'll get somebody. Maybe they'll get someone in there that can.
Yeah, I think it's the most desirable spot of all the vacancies at the moment. So we'll see. The next one, I think fans and pundits and anybody from Chicago has been crying out for this one for a very long time. But that's Matt Nagy from the Chicago Bears has finally been let go after that franchise has suffered in turmoil this season and even last season. He's never really looked like a good coach in my eyes. He's always looked like he's been sort of bumbling his way through it. Even if they made the playoffs, they sort of fell bumbling into the playoffs and got handled. So he's now gone in Chicago.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of place I think you'd want someone like a Flores, like a good defensive mind, just to maintain that defense that they've got there. But yeah, I think he was sacked with a winning record, which is strange. I mean, they've not been great. They've been getting worse, haven't they? And since
yeah, for sure. They've been riding the coattails of a very strong defence for a long time, and as that's just started to get not as strong, their offence has equally not picked the boots up. So he's out, and that's a good thing. Last but not least, Vic Fangio from the Broncos has been let go, and he's been there a long time, and the Broncos have just not won anything. So they've let him go, and the Broncos are on the lookout for a new head coach as well. So it's a pretty desirable spot apart from at quarterback. I think it'd be a really good place to go for a quarterback focused head coach or something like that. So they can either draft one or pick somebody up who's a bit of a quarterback whisperer, because outside of that, their defense is looking pretty solid. They've got some decent skill pieces in the wide receiver core and tight end, and it's not a bad place to go.
No, I mean, I don't really like the Broncos, but
no.
I think if they got the right quarterback in there, I don't know who would you want there. There's so many options now because of coordinators and stuff. There's so many options for people to go there.
Yeah, I think the Broncos will not struggle at all to find a head coach. It seems to be a pretty desirable place to be in football anyway. And yeah, like I said, they've got the pieces in place. So those head coaches were all fired: Joe Judge, David Culley, Brian Flores, Mike Zimmer, Matt Nagy, and Vic Fangio. So we will be, I'm sure, seeing majority, if not all of them, in different places next year, and we'll be seeing different faces as the head coaches of those teams. And that moves us on to our next segment, which is the ever faithful final slap or sign of the regular season. It's slap or sign. Dave, talk to me. I want you to tell me who you are signing from the NFC this week.
Signing from the NFC, I am signing the GOAT of tight ends. No, I'm signing Rob Gronkowski this weekend.
Okay.
Because I quite like him. I like his personality. I think he's like a jovial guy that, like, you know, he's retiring when Tom Brady retires.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as, like, even if he had like a 2,000 yard season, everyone was like, he's the greatest tight end of all time. If Tom Brady hung it up the next year, he'd walk into the sunset. He's not bothered about playing with anybody else.
No.
And just
such
to
a
see
goof.
him,
such a goof, isn't
he's
he?
such a goonball, and he's definitely got some kind of brain trauma. But what a bloke, man! Like, and when he went to Tom Brady this week, I'm just like, I need one more catch for £1 million. Tom was like,
yeah.
Just winged him up or like threw him like a tight end screen pass.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like him. I think he's I think he's funny to watch.
And he's clutch as well, isn't he? Like
he's at 170 yards.
Yeah.
The last I had his stats up here earlier. The last 3 weeks, he's had about 500 yards.
Yeah, he comes up big for Tom when he needs him, and the Bucs are going into the playoffs this year slightly banged up. I think, you know, losing Antonio Brown, losing Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
They've not got Lenny Fournette at the moment either. They're definitely in Strugsville, Tennessee. But when Brady has got his big man Gronk, it feels very different. Like, he can always rely on him.
Yeah, he's had a good season. And I'd love to, I don't want him to win because I want something new to win the thing, but I kind of want to see him win again. I feel like when Brady's in the league, I just kind of want him to keep winning just till he retires. Now when he's like, I've got 8, I'm going.
Yeah.
But
could have years left. All right, well, that's big Rob Gronkowski getting signed. And on the opposite side of the spectrum in the NFC, who are you going to slap?
I'm slapping Joe Judge.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to because he's already gone, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. But he's QB sneaking twice at the end of the first half just to get your punter some room. I don't mind you doing it if you're on your half-yard line. But when you're on like your 3rd or 4th yard line and you QB sneak twice just to get a little bit of extra room, just give it to the running back. Nobody's talking about this now. You've had Aaron Rodgers talking about it, laughing about it. He's been basically mocked all over Twitter and all the sports stations for doing it. The commentator, I watched it again before we did this, and the commentators were hounding him. Just give it to your running back. Everybody does that. Nobody's talking about this game or these particular plays. And honestly now I'm thinking there's potential that if he'd have just ran the ball there, he might still have a job.
Yeah.
It was that embarrassing. So yeah, I mean, there's been a season of just mistakes, mismanaging clock and clock management, throwing a flag, challenging something that can't be challenged, and losing a timeout as a result of it. There's so many things that he's done that.
Playing Mike Glennon, come rain, come shine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't we're in cap hell at the minute. So like this off season could be insanity for us because they could trade absolutely everybody.
Right.
If they're gonna, the GM could come in and be like, right, if we're gonna rebuild this, we're gonna rebuild it properly. We're gonna get every draft pick going. Galladay's gone, Barkley's gone. The only people you're keeping are like your left tackle that you've just drafted, Kadarius Toney. Some of these people, the people that are on like rookie contracts, whatever. And we could finish next season with like 2 wins. Or 1 win. But
Gosh.
I know, and this is what I mean. We're in a bit of limbo at the minute, but he just didn't make the right decisions, I don't think. And I do think he'll be a head coach again somewhere else. Because I think he says all the right things, and I think internally he probably believes them all as well. And after the season had done now, there's been like a photo of him having like loads of booze and that delivered to his house. And he stood outside the front signing for it all. And basically, he threw like a thank you party for all the coaches and stuff and people that had been fired that worked with him.
Right.
He basically threw them a massive party to say like thank you for your help over the last 2 years and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so he seems like a decent bloke.
He's obviously a good bloke, yeah. Do you know what I mean? His family's uprooted from Boston to come over here and spend 2 years sucking with the Giants. But, I mean, it can't just be him. Pat Shermer was shit. Ben McAdoo was shit. We've had like the last 4 coaches. We've not had a winning record. We've got the worst record over the last 10 years. So, us and the Jets. So there must be something about New York. But it's a good situation for whoever comes in. So
it is, yeah.
We've got draft capital. If you do want to move on from players, then it is what it is. But Joe Judge, he sealed his own fate this week by being just some ropey calls, and I think that his firing was deserved. I wasn't on board with it 2 weeks ago, but when I found out he'd been sacked, I was quite relieved because now that means we can actually, and they're doing it right. They're not interviewing any internal candidates. So we've not hired anybody from outside the organisation since 1971.
Right.
Everybody all the GMs, all the coaches have had all the GMs, have had some kind of affiliation to the Giants. And they're not interviewing any of them this time, so they're bringing someone completely in from the outside.
That's good.
So Joe Judge is getting slapped.
Slappy for Joe Judge. Like it. Agree with it. Over to the NFC. Who are you going to sign from the NFC? From the AFC this week.
I am signing Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, the Rook. The Rook comes up clutch in his last game of the season and gets a sign off Big Dave.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably been waiting I wanted to do it so bad this season because I liked watching him. I don't watch any college football, but I've watched little bits of his stuff for the last 3 years. And he was touted as being this next Andrew Luck that was coming out of college or whatever. I didn't follow football when Andrew Luck got drafted. But I'm assuming he came into a better situation than what Lawrence has. His
100%.
His manager was an absolute gimp. Urban Meyer, who's been sacked. Get gone back to college, you weasel. His running back tore his ACL at the start of the season. He's been out for the season. He's not had a great start.
And the rest of the Jags team is pretty god awful as well.
Yeah, it's pretty pumped. Yeah, but this week they effectively were playing for absolutely nothing. In fact, if they'd have won, which they did, and the Detroit Lions had have lost, they would have actually lost the number 1 pick in the draft. So they would, in theory, it was better for them to get slapped by the Colts. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. They went out, won. I mean, the Lions won as well, so it still worked out in their favour. But in doing so, they stopped the Colts from getting to the playoffs.
Which is amazing.
And the Colts are not a team to be sniffed at all. They've got the best running back currently in the league, statistically.
One of the best offensive lines.
Oh yeah,
they've got a great defense.
They've got a great team. And the lowly, woeful Jags beat the life out of the Colts this weekend. They couldn't do anything against them. And Trevor Lawrence did alright, 23 of 32 passing. His bog standard 223 yards, but he threw 2 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yes.
And that's why he's getting signed this week.
For the first time, more than a touchdown.
Yeah, he put up some good stats this week. Well,
yeah,
above average quarterback stats.
It's definitely worth a sign. It's definitely worth a sign. To do that to the Colts, who are playing for a playoff, it goes to show you that whatever they might think that they've got in Trevor Lawrence, whether it be, you've not seen it yet, there's that little spark of magic that's maybe just buried amongst the pile of turds that are the Jags team at the moment. But sprinkle a little bit extra on, a couple of first round picks this year. You never know.
Cool. So yeah, he's getting signed.
And what about your final AFC slap?
Can only go to one man. The ginger gimp on the other side of the field. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is an average backup. He peaked in 2017 and then he got injured and somebody else had to win the Super Bowl for him. So he's a Super Bowl champion, Carson Wentz says. He has a ring. But he didn't deserve it.
No.
He was 17 of 29. So all they had to do, if they won this game, it effectively ended like 14. We spoke about it last week. Ended like 4 teams' playoff dreams.
Yeah.
And by losing, he let other teams in.
Mm-hmm.
All he had to do was beat the Jags, the 2-14 Jags or whatever they were at the time. And he couldn't do it. Couldn't get it done. 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jonathan Taylor was pathetic. 15 carries for 77 yards.
Mm.
You've got, like you were saying when we were watching it, why are they not giving Jonathan Taylor the ball? When Jonathan Taylor gets like 100 yards, I think they've won every game. Every time he's below that, they've lost. Give him the ball, establish the run. They only scored 26 points, the Jags. I mean, I'd kill for the Giants to score 26 points, but the 8 points that the Colts scored, so they scored a field goal in the second quarter and then 8 points in the fourth quarter. They didn't score anything in the first or third.
I just, didn't understand it. If you've got, the way to win games is you feed your best player the ball. Their best player is by far not Carson Wentz, and it's by far Jonathan Taylor.
It wasn't as though, I mean, obviously the Jags did a good job of stopping the run. I think in the first, it's not got it on air, but in the first half, Jonathan Taylor had like 17 yards. So they did a good job of it, but Carson went through 30 times, which still doesn't seem like a lot. 30 times, and what was the time of possession? They did it for 26 minutes. The Jags had it for 33. Right. So it's not that great a disparity of time, but it seemed like they didn't do anything with it.
No.
So he's getting slapped because there's no. I mean, the owners the GMs come out and said only that if they thought Carson Wentz was the guy, but they don't know who's going to be under center next year. He's got another year on his contract.
Yeah,
he'd be my backup.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that leads me into, and I will switch over to my slap or sign because I've picked exactly the same person in this scenario. So my AFC slap is Carson Wentz as well. So we're on the same page totally. He was sacked 6 times, threw an interception, lost a fumble, had a 4th down fail that they went for. And it looked like, we were watching it together and I was saying Carson Wentz is single-handedly ruining the Colts' playoff chances, and it was his single-handed efforts. Went to try and get the ball out whilst he was being sacked, got it stripped and lost, and returned for a touchdown. Threw a ropey interception, couldn't even convert on a 4th down. He categorically should not be starting for any football team. Would he be a good backup? Would I take Carson Wentz as a backup in Seattle? Yes, of course. Because if he comes into the game, you've got a very fractional chance of winning. But as a starter, that fractional chance of winning, I mean, it goes to show how good the Colts actually are because with him, they've still managed to win games and nearly get in the playoffs. And he is not that man anymore. He looks broken. He looks like a pale, broken, grown child. He just, I don't know. It's weird.
Looks like Marv at Home Alone.
Yes,
I would rather have Marv from the Wet Bandits at quarterback than Carson Wentz.
I'd rather have Joe Pesci
at running back. He's potentially. I mean, he could have cost Jonathan Taylor. He's definitely cost him MVP votes, and he could have cost him the opportunity to be Defensive Player of the Year by that poor game.
Yeah, definitely. Because you immediately discount the Colts, don't you?
Yeah, of course you do, because they're not in the playoffs. They've barely got a winning record. And they finish 9-8.
9-8, yeah.
9-8 with that roster.
Mm-hmm.
You put Daniel Jones in there, I bet they win another 3 games.
Definitely, I'd say so. Because Carson Wentz is turbo.
He's so crap. The Eagles must be laughing the whole way to the bank. Because not only has Carson Wentz fleeced them of money, but they've then gone, right, we're just going to pass this nappy with a big turd in it to the Colts. And the Colts being that dumb, they must have realised halfway through the season, he's shit. I'd be like, right, let's, if we're going to keep him, let's bench him, let's get somebody else starting so we can at least keep our 1st round pick. Because now they've lost that, the Eagles have got it. The Eagles will be laughing. I bet their GM sat there
rubbing his hands together, yeah.
I got rid of Wentzzy, see? I got 3 first-round picks, see?
Absolutely diabolical. And it would have been an alright pick.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, we're aligned on that one. So your slaps are in. One of mine is now in because I thought I'd jump on the back of yours.
Okay, who
what do you want to know
signed?
next?
Signed from the AFC.
Okay, so I'm putting a spin on this, considering it's the last regular season week. From the AFC, I'm going to sign Brandon Staley, the head coach of the LA Chargers, so I could only go and fire him.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to do. Brandon Staley is getting signed to the Seahawks so that I can turn around, give him the finger, and fire him and send him on his merry weaselly way. Because all the way through the year this year, I have thought that Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, has made fucking questionable calls every single week. To his credit, some of them have paid off, but it doesn't take away from the fact that some of them have been questionable. When they were playing the Chiefs and they managed to get a win, he went for it 3 times on 4th down just to get down the field so that they could score a field goal to beat the Chiefs. And that was a huge moment because it was like, oh gosh, the Chargers have taken the Chiefs out. But they got the 4th down by a penalty, not by actually converting it. And he got away scot-free. The next time they played the Chiefs, they went for it on 4th again. This was just 2 weeks ago, and got stopped. And that was it. And the Chiefs were like, see ya. And they beat them. This week, Brandon Staley went for it on 4th down on his own 18-yard line in a game where a win meant they were in the playoffs, flopped it, didn't get it. And then the worst part was at the end of the game where the Raiders managed to get themselves just in field goal range, but apparently, according to sources, weren't necessarily going to kick it because a tie took both of the teams into the playoffs. Then Brandon Staley, the weaselly mutt, decided to take a timeout to ice the kicker or put some question into the Raiders' heads or put him off so that he didn't kick the field goal. And instead of them taking the tie and the draw in overtime, which would have meant both the Chargers and Raiders go to the playoffs, they decided to say, oh, fuck it, we'll come out and take the kick. Because even if he misses it, we're still in the playoffs, so who cares? And that is such a kick in the teeth. And when you look at him, that Brad Staley bloke, I don't know, he looks like something out of like Saved by the Bell. He's just like a nerdy, skinny, just cap wearing, oversized coat, sporting gimp. And he doesn't look like, he looks like he's like way out of his depth. He looks like somebody who you'd bully in the playground if you were a bully. And he doesn't, in my opinion, deserve to be a head coach. The Chargers team, again, is also so strong. The roster is impeccably stacked. You know, if you look at it for what it is, it really is. People are surprised. Oh, the Chargers, they're doing really well this year. Fucking good. So they should be. Look at the roster. You've got a very up and coming quarterback in, what's his name again now? I've forgotten. In Justin Herbert. You've got Austin Eckler, who's bossed in for like 19 touchdowns this year, running back. You've got 2 top flight wide receivers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, who can take the top off. You've got Jared Cook at tight end, who is no scrub. You've got a really decent offensive line because you've taken one of the best centers in football off Green Bay this year. You've got Rashawn Slater starting at left tackle, who was one of the top picks in the draft last year. On defense, you've got Joey Bosa. You've got good cornerbacks. You've got freaking, what's the safety?
Harris.
No, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? But the strong safety, who's immense. They've just got a great team. They've got a great team. They should be making the playoffs. The fact that they're not there is his fault. It's almost a Mike Zimmer moment for me. The team is far too talented to not be making the playoffs, even though they sit in a relatively strong AFC West, but it's no NFC West. So anyway, he's getting signed to be fired and then slapped as well.
Yeah, on the way out the door.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think Herbert makes some questionable decisions sometimes, and maybe he's cost him a couple of games, but I mean, he threw the ball 64 times. That is unbelievable. But yeah, basically I think the players had all come together and been like, look, let's just play for a draw, fuck the Steelers.
And please, fuck the Steelers.
Yeah, but now we've got to suffer because of him, single-handedly because of him.
Yeah.
We have to suffer another game with Big Ben.
Yeah.
And they could, and not only that, they could then rob us. I mean, I don't like the Chiefs, but I like the Chiefs more than the Steelers. The Steelers have the potential ability to rob the playoffs of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs if they beat him, and then we have to tolerate him again for another week. I'm telling you, it is set in stone. Big Ben's winning the fucking Super Bowl. He won't be beat.
I hate him.
Okay, sound. Agree with it. Slap him. Sign him.
Sign him, slap him, fire him.
Yeah. Okay, from the NFC, who are you going to sign this week?
So from the NFC, I'm taking the opportunities where I can. I'm signing Russell Wilson this week from the NFC. Signing him because I don't want him to leave. So I'm basically saying, Russell Wilson, stay in Seattle because you've shown how fucking good you are when you're actually healthy and you can get the job done. Russ balled out this week. He threw for 240 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns through the air. He rushed for a touchdown, so he had 4 overall TDs. He did throw an interception, but it was a bit of a lazy one. He could have had a 5th touchdown if Gerald Everett, our absolutely wonky tight end, could catch a ball because he dropped it into his basket and he just fumbled it and couldn't catch it. So Russ just absolutely balled out. He was playing a Cardinals team who had everything to play for. They were playing to win the NFC West, and he just had a fantastic game, basically. Just did everything that he needed to show that he's still got accuracy, power, he can still be mobile, he can put the ball where you need it to, he can play against a good defense. The Cardinals are a good defense, there's no two ways about it. And we got the win of the season as well for us against the Cardinals on the road as well in Arizona. So, all I can say is that when you see Russ play like that, you've got to look at it and say, you can't let somebody that talented just walk away into the sunset and go and sign for a different team that's potentially going to hurt you for the next fucking 5 years. So yeah, I'm signing Russ, big number 3, Danger Russ.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, they need to do everything they can to keep him there because you've seen what the team's like with Geno Smith thrown to him, you know what I mean? Who are you going to get as a competent? You probably have to go out and try and sign like Marcus Mariota or something like that. Somebody who's a bit of a mobile, a real poor man's Russell Wilson. I mean, he had 15 completions for 238 yards.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it?
It seems like a lot of blown coverages, that does. They're just the downfield throws, aren't they?
Yeah, they're deep balls, yeah. Yeah.
26. They missed
he did,
9. Rashard Penny is a fucking tank.
Apparently so. Only in the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah, he's only played 4 games, hasn't he?
Yeah. He's not. It's his first 4 starts in a long time, and he's put up like 700 yards and 7 touchdowns or some shit. 500 yards.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
750 yards he said this year, and basically they've come in the last 5 games.
Yeah.
137 yards, 39, 135, 170, 190.
I thought about signing him this week, but I just thought I'd take our QB. I mean, Penny did pop another 55-yarder, I think, this week, and it's nice to see. You know what I mean? I'm not getting overhyped about him because it is what it is. We've had a losing season. We finished. If you can finish strong in a losing season, we finished relatively strong. You know. And maybe sparked just a little bit of hope for Russ to say, you know, I think we've got 6th most cap space in the NFL next year so far as it stands, or 7th. So it gives us a lot of room to build around him. We didn't have anywhere near that last year, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Rashard Penny seems like a beast in his last few games, but by no means am I going to get out my station thinking that he's going to turn into frickin' Marshawn Lynch. But it's nice to just see some production on one side of the ball.
Marshawn Lynch would kill for 190 yards.
Probably would.
Yeah, no, finished strong, which is good to see. And then hopefully, I mean, I don't want to trade for him. So I would like, I don't know, I just think I don't know how many teams would give up stuff because he's not young, so I just feel like if you're going to go after somebody, why not go to Deshaun Watson? So I think you might be safe as long as he wants to stay. You just need to do what Packers are doing with Rodgers and just give him input on everything.
Yeah, give him input, give him what he wants.
Ain't sacked beat the meat yet though.
Not yet, but they've also not had a meeting with him yet either. So his meeting is due in the next couple of days, and we'll see. I guess we'll see what comes of that. From what I've heard, this is turned into a bit of a Seahawks Giants podcast, but from what I've heard, they need to check if he's on the same page with the future of the franchise. You know, the GM wants to know, is Pete on board with what their objectives are? And I'm hoping their objectives are, hey Pete, look, we're going to pay Russ. We need to be more aggressive on offense and this kind of thing. And if he's like, no, that's not what I do. I run the ball. I run. Then they might say, well, it's mutually beneficial that we part ways, but we'll see. I think if the fact that he's not been let go already makes me feel like he might end up staying, because if they were going to make a statement, it's, you've seen the other head coaches that have had that statement made on a losing season. So, I'd like to think that we'd let go of him, to be honest, but maybe not.
We shall see.
We shall. Yeah.
Go on then. You're going to
last
slap.
one.
Finally,
My last one in the NFC is the same game. I'm slapping the Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, they had the opportunity, and with the way that the games fell, with the Rams losing to the Niners, if the Cardinals had beat the Seahawks, Cardinals, the powerhouse of the NFC, taking on the lowly Seahawks in the final game of the season, Kyler Murray having this MVP-ish like run of games and all this kind of stuff. Well, guess what? They couldn't get it done. They had the opportunity to take the NFC West and make a statement, go from last to first, and they didn't do it. And that to me says a lot. I don't think the Cardinals will get very far in the playoffs. I think they might be out as soon as they've come in. And the fact that we were able to go into their house with nothing to play for, a bit of a banged up team, and take it to them. I feel like the Cardinals need a slap. They should have played for more. And as I said, with the Rams losing, that's exactly what the Niners did. Came in and absolutely played their life out. And the Cardinals just kind of fell apart and were chasing the game against Seattle, against the Seattle team that's not looked good at all this year. And I think the Cardinals should just be embarrassed by that. They should have tried to seal the deal and take the NFC title. Big implications there, because they could have moved up a few seeds as well in the playoff picture, and maybe had an easier run.
Did the Rams lose this week?
Yeah.
9.
So if the Rams, because the Rams lost. If
the Rams lost and the Cardinals won, they'd probably still been in the same position, playing each other in the. But I suppose if they'd have both won, it might have been different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But so Cardinals are getting a slap, and it's for no other reason than that they didn't come through in the clutch.
No, I think you're right. I think the only reason they would potentially get to the divisional round is because they're playing the Rams. I think if they were playing any other team from the NFC, not in the NFC West, they wouldn't win. So yeah.
Fair.
Anywho.
That's it. It's the end of Slap or Sign. It was a long one there, but that's all good, because we're going to go into On the Clock, and we are literally going to be on the clock. So, Slap or Sign over, we're moving in. We're going to talk about the games that were played last week. On the Clock. Are you ready, Dave?
Always.
Always and forever. Sweet. Well, in the final game week, the extended game week, for the first time ever, we had 18 weeks of regular season football, and in that we had all of our teams playing their final games, starting with the Cowboys taking on the Eagles. So Dallas taking on Philadelphia. This one had playoff implications, but the Eagles decided to rest their number one quarterback, and the Cowboys decided to try and take the pain to the Eagles so that they could finish with the best record that they could. And that's exactly what happened. The Cowboys beat the life out of the Eagles. They scored 51 points to the Eagles 26. Cowboys finished now this season at 12-5. It's a very strong record in the NFC. It's a very strong record in the NFC East. The Eagles fell to 9-8, but that still gets them in the playoffs. Dak Prescott had a hell of a game, 295 yards, 5 touchdowns, threw whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted, and the Eagles just couldn't come up and do what they needed to do. They did play Gardner Minshew instead of Justin Fields, not Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts. But I mean, the Cowboys are too powerful, and that's how it finished.
Yeah, took a big stinky, steamy turd on the Eagles, and I'm glad, because the Eagles had this coming for trading with the Cowboys in the draft this year, so they could get Devontae Smith in front of us. Not that I want Devontae Smith, but Devontae Smith looks 10 times better than Kadarius Toney at the minute. But he's
only at the moment.
At
the moment.
Kadarius Toney's got a bit of Tyreek Hill in him, which I think is unique to. Obviously, it's not unique if there's 2 of them, but there's only one Tyreek Hill. But he looks the most like he's the movement of a Tyreek Hill, and I'm glad that's on our team and not on the Eagles. But I can't stand the Eagles.
No.
If I'm honest with you, the Eagles are now jumping to be my most hated team.
Oh, are they?
They're above the Cowboys.
Shizzle.
I think the Cowboys may have dropped to third actually, because I don't like the Wind Sox either.
Wow. Okay. Well, Cowboys, maybe it's just a bit of respect for some football that's being played, because Cowboys have looked okay this year, but I still think Dak is a massive Dak.
He is, yeah, but he's good, which is so annoying. And what's even more annoying is Gallup goes out after tearing his ACL, and who the fuck is Cedric Wilson? Some youth just jumps up out of nowhere.
120 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game.
And I am a complete believer in the fact it's because your number 1 receiver, Amari Cooper, is going to be getting the best corner on him. Your second best receiver, who is arguably a number 1 in any other team, CeeDee Lamb, even though he looks like a little rat, he's getting your second best. So your slot or your choggy corner that you've got, your third best corners going on their third best receiver, who happens to be good.
Yeah.
So he just took a shit all over them for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, Cedric Wilson, he looks like he can play as well. I still think they're getting bounced in the first round, but we'll save that for later.
Well, I hope both teams get bounced in the first round, to be honest, because I don't like either of them, but we'll see what happens. On to the next, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos. This was a little bit tighter than expected, but there was really no massive implications in this one. The Chiefs took it to the Broncos, and they won this one 28-24. Patrick Mahomes, 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Broncos held on. They bust a few big runs on the ground. Melvin Gordon having a bit of a day, 110 yards. But the Chiefs ultimately did what they had to do to get the win done. They go into the off-season and into the playoffs, finishing strong. 12-5 is their record. And the Broncos, unfortunately, fall to the bottom of that division. And they've got a fair few things that need to be done in this off-season, one of which was them firing Vic Fangio, their head coach. The next game was the Jets from New York taking on the Bills from Northern New York in Buffalo. And that one finished Bills 27, Jets 10. Zach Wilson for the Jets only threw for 85 yards. He did throw a touchdown, but that was a bit of a woeful effort. And Josh Allen, Singletary, Stephon Diggs, they all did what they needed to do to get that rust just worn off before they go into the playoffs. Popping 27 yards, 27 points in this game is nice for the Bills to finish on. They finish 11-6. I think they're going into the playoffs strong, and they're going into the playoffs confident. Their defense is playing very well and has done the whole season. Interestingly, not a single player from the Bills defense was taken to the Pro Bowl, Dave, but they had the number 1 defense in like nearly every category. But that maybe just means that they play well as a team and as a unit, I suppose, and there's no individual standout. But
No, I think what that proves is that the Pro Bowl is horseshit.
All
As I
that.
said, it's voted for by the media, by people who are just fanboys of teams. So you get the same people going year after year. Tom Brady's been 17 times because everyone bums off Tom Brady.
Mm.
You know, it's
So,
a joke. It's the same as like the NBA one. So it means nothing unless you're all pro. It means nothing.
Yeah, that all pro list though, if you've
I
seen
know.
it, is quite questionable at the moment as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Jets lose out, and they're getting one of the top picks in the draft, and the Bills are going into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens there. Next game was the Saints taking on the Falcons. This did have playoff implications. The Saints could only get into the playoffs with a win, and they needed the Niners to lose. The Saints did win, and the Falcons lost, but the Niners did not lose. So the Saints finished the season 9-8. And the Falcons finished the season 7-10, losing to the Saints in this week, 30 to the Falcons 20. Nothing to talk about in this game of any implication whatsoever, other than the fact that I think it's getting very, very close to Matt Ryan having to hang his boots up. He looks pretty pathetic. He threw a few decent passes in this game where you thought, okay, he's still got some skills, but I just don't think that he is the man that he once was, and he's certainly not aging like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers.
No, and Taysom Hill went out injured, didn't he?
That was nice to see.
Thank the Lord that Gimp got hurt and shock. Trevor Siemian comes in and throws 2 touchdowns.
Yep, he is definitely the not the future of the Saints, but he's more of the future than Taysom Hill is. They should be learning from that very, very quickly. Taysom Hill goes down, and then the backup comes in and absolutely steamrolls. So they should be taking that one away. Next game in the AFC. This was the Patriots taking on the Dolphins. This one would have been a much nicer scenario for the Patriots to go into the playoffs with a final win against their divisional rivals. But unfortunately, the Dolphins did what they needed to do and beat the Patriots 33-24. The Dolphins ran all over the Patriots. Tua had a very average game, but the Dolphins defense just did what it needed to do. Took Mac Jones out, picked him off, slowed everyone down, stopped the run. And yeah, I mean, the fact that Brian Flores was fired after this game, again, is questionable because it's a big one to win. But when you're the Dolphins and you're finishing with almost a break-even record, it's probably not what you're expecting from a talented or a relatively talented roster. And the Patriots sort of, I think, kind of go limping into the playoffs a little bit. Not as much as
playing the worst football at the minute.
Yeah. Not as much as the Eagles are maybe limping into the playoffs, but I think they're limping in somehow. And we'll see what happens. But they're playing the Bills in the playoffs. I think they're going to get handled.
They're going to get a bully beat down there.
Next game was the Panthers Buccaneers. So Tom Brady had a few records to break in this one. I believe that he broke one, he broke one of his own records, which was, I think, amount of touchdowns in a season. But he also broke Drew Brees' completion, passes completed or something like that. I think he needed 18 completions and he got 20 something. But ultimately, the Buccaneers dismantled the Panthers. The Panthers had checked out. There was nothing to play for. Buccaneers won 41-17. And as you said, you signed him. Rob Gronkowski had a big game. Mike Evans had a decent game. Scotty Miller had a good special teams and rushing game. And Brady threw for 326 yards and 3 touchdowns. Again, the GOAT is just taking care of business. And there's the Panthers, Carolina, they've got so much to do in the off season. They need to reevaluate everything, because they're not a good football team. Masqueraded for the first 3 weeks as a good football team, and then fell off a cliff.
5,316 yards he threw for this year.
Brady.
Yeah.
He's a beast.
43 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Yeah, it was his most passing yards in his career, that was.
Was it?
Yeah, not touchdowns. He's had
50.
He's had a 50 before. 50
right.
and 8 in 2007.
What a beast.
Oh, God. What happened that year?
Yes, the Giants did win, Dave. On to the Giants, which was the next game we don't need to go into in any great detail. And that was the Giants taking on the Washington Wind Sox, aka football team. Football team won 22-7, and yeah, the Giants only scored 7 points in the fourth quarter. It was a shitter of a game on both sides of the pitch. Nothing worth talking about. No playoff implications. That one was just let's get this done and head into the off season so that we can make improvements, which is exactly what both teams are looking to do. Did you want to talk about that in any more depth, Dave, or are you good?
Nope, I am good.
Okay.
The sooner I forget about this season, the better.
Okay. Need one of those things from Men in Black that I can just shoot in the face and you forget about 2021 NFL. Texans, Titans. This one was interesting because I think if the Texans had won, there was some implications in there. I think it meant that the Chiefs would have gone to the top of the AFC and got the bye, but the Titans managed to hold on and win. And I say hold on. It finished 28-25 against the Texans. Titans just won, and Tannehill threw for 4 touchdowns in this one, and Julio Jones, superstar wide receiver, had his first touchdown as a Titan, first touchdown of the year, which I think is pretty pathetic.
Very pathetic.
The Steelers took on the Ravens. This game was shocking, and yet somehow we have a team here that has fell over, rolled through copious amounts of soggy, wet dog shit, and still found themselves waking up in the playoffs, and that is the Steelers. Nothing would have felt better if the Chargers and Raiders game would have finished in a tie and it would have bounced the Steelers out of the playoffs, because Chase Claypool was posting fucking TikToks and Instagrams straight after the game saying that they were playoff bound when they technically weren't. Nothing would have felt better than that, to be honest. Nothing. And we wouldn't have had to witness Big Ben fucking flab his way through another playoff game and potentially beat the Chiefs, because who knows, in the playoffs you got one chance, one game, and it's anybody's, which would be super wank if that was the case. But the Steelers beat the Ravens 16-13. What a fucking mess.
Both of them teams suck ass, man.
Proper. I mean, Chase Claypool here is on the stat sheet as the leading receiver for the Steelers here with 3 attempts and 33 yards. That's what kind of game that was. Terrible.
They suck.
We spoke about this game. The Colts took on the Jaguars. All the Colts needed to do to make themselves playoff bound was to beat the Jaguars, who had won 2 games all year and lost 14, but the Colts could not get it done. Hence the slap that Carson Wentz got from me and Dave, and the sign that Trevor Lawrence, the new super hot quarterback in the NFL draft this year, managed to beat the Colts 26-11. And we've spoken about it already. The Colts should have made the playoffs with the roster that they've got, and instead they sit at 9-8, and they are watching from the sideline yet again. A few more games left to talk about. This one again had no playoff implications, but the Green Bay Packers took on the Detroit Lions. This one was pretty tight, and Aaron Rodgers did play for a proportion of this game. But the reason why the Lions ended up winning was because the Packers took him out, basically. They wouldn't have lost if they'd have carried on playing Rodgers. For the amount of time that he played, he scored 2 touchdowns, threw for 2. I think he threw both to Alan Lazard. I'm not too sure. One might have been somewhere else, but ultimately the Packers lost this one, but it didn't have any implication whatsoever because they'd already gone through top of the NFC with a bye, so they were just running the players out just to keep them sharp. And the Lions managed to win this, which actually put them second in the second place for the pick this year in the draft. If they'd have lost, they'd have gone to number 1. But they didn't want to lie down, and I kind of give credit to teams that don't just throw the towel in when they feel like they could get an easy loss and benefit from that. So big win for the Lions, and there was some bright sparks in that game, specifically for the Lions. Jared Goff has had an up and down season, but he's had a fair few yards and touchdowns, and Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions had 100 yards again this week, so he looks special for them. Bengals took on the Browns in another game in the AFC. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns just down the road, and the Bengals held everyone back, didn't play any of their starters in this game, which is why they lost to the woeful Browns. Joe Burrow didn't play, Joe Mixon didn't play, even like starting defensive linemen and offensive linemen didn't play in this one, Dave. So I think Jamar Chase took a few snaps, but that was it. And the Bengals lost, but still won their division.
Yeah.
Another divisional. They were all divisional games this week, weren't they, Dave?
Pretty much, yeah.
I didn't realise that. I think they were all from divisions. So the Bears took on the Vikings. This one was a nothing game as well. No playoff implications, and the Vikings just edged a win against the Bears, as they absolutely should have. You've got Dalvin Cook here, you've got Kirk Cousins, you've got Justin Jefferson, all playing top flight football against the likes of Andy Dalton, David Montgomery and Darren Mooney. So the Vikings should be doing bits here and getting things done. They finished the season 8-9 and the Bears finish a sorrowful 6-11, which works out well for Dave and the Giants because
give me a
get
pick.
Their pick.
Number 7, 5 and 7 we're picking.
Love that.
Give me some O-line, man.
Some good players in there. And then the last but not least, the game this week was the Seahawks Cardinals, which I've already spoken about. It was a big win for the Hawks to finish the season. 38 to the Cardinals 30. The Cardinals were playing for a playoff seeding and they were playing to win the league. Win the NFC West, but they couldn't get the job done thanks to some big performances from Rusty Wilson, Rashard Penny and Tyler Lockett doing absolute bits. And we kept him out of it. And when I say the last game, I held 2 games to the final part of On the Clock because they were the most exciting games to watch. And that was the Chargers Raiders and the 49ers Rams. And both of these games had huge playoff implications. The 49ers had to beat the Rams to get into the playoffs. This went to overtime and the Niners managed to win it. Niners won 27-24, knocking the Rams down just a little peg to 12-5. The Niners go to 10-7. It's a tough division, this one is. But do you know what? Credit to the Niners, Dave, because they played out of their minds to get this win.
Yeah, Matt Stafford's thrown 17 interceptions this year.
He likes to throw the ball, though, doesn't he? Slings it.
I'm glad the Niners won. I'm glad that they're in the playoffs because I think they're a team that's built to actually do all right.
Yeah.
And it's not too long ago that both of these teams were in the Super Bowl. Do you think the Rams have given too much up for Matt Stafford?
The fact that they've not got many picks now, it means that their team is what it is right now, which if they don't go to the Super Bowl this year, I think that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, because I bet the record's not their record. The Rams' record probably isn't that much different to what it was with Goff. So they finished 12-5. Yeah. I don't know what have they finished.
Yeah, they finished 12-5. They finished top of the division last year again. Oh no, we did. Sorry, we did. That's mad. But they were close. Must have been
10-6 last year.
Okay. So they won 2 more games with Matt Stafford, but they've had an extra game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's strange.
It is weird. I think they maybe didn't give too much up for him, but I do think that they've given up a lot to have the team that they've got. You know, Odell, Von Miller, Matt Stafford, and if they don't make the Super Bowl, you would have to be asking a question of like, what's next? Like, if you don't make it this year, what's next? Maybe you need one more year for them to gel. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I think it's certainly questionable. But when you get the fight taken to you like the Niners did in this one, it's always going to be hard. The Niners played so hard. They came after Matt Stafford super aggressively. They were throwing the ball downfield. They did everything they needed to do to win. And fair play to the Niners. It was actually a great game, and the fact that it went to overtime and the Niners kept the Rams away is only even better. And then the following game, which was the last game of the regular season, couldn't have been any more exciting in the scheme of things. the Chargers were taking on the Raiders. Both teams were playing for a win-and-in scenario. That means that if they won the game, they were in the playoffs. But what was also behind the scenes was if they drew, they were both in as well. So essentially both teams were playing to not lose, which maybe plays into the fact that it went to overtime, and it was 32-all at the end of the fourth quarter. At the end of the fourth quarter, the end of the game, end of the fourth quarter, it was 32-all. Both teams had a good game. You know, like they were just playing aggressively, going for it on fourth downs, trying to build points. You know, 30 plus each. Justin Herbert, like you said, Dave, threw for 60 odd attempts. Josh Jacobs ran 26 times for 132 yards. Derek Carr had a reasonably good game. Receivers all over the place. Defensive players played out their mind. There's a few turnovers. But it ultimately came down to the last kick of the game, right?
Yeah. And like we spoke about it earlier, when like you can't. All you to do is just draw. Just come to a gentleman's agreement, get the Steelers out, both of you two in. Couldn't do it. The Raiders kick it. And I'm kind of happy for the Raiders because they've had an absolute stinker of a season. They've fired the head coach. Two of the players, well, one of them's in jail, Ruggs, and the other one get done for drink driving as well, and he's not on the team anymore. So I'm glad that and imagine if they'd have kept some of the people they've got rid of. They'd have kept Amari Cooper. If they'd have kept Khalil Mack.
Yeah, they could be a powerhouse in that division for sure. But you're exactly right there, Dave. I mean, I don't really feel good for the Raiders. I don't like them. So the fact that they've made the playoffs, I feel like they're just one of those teams. They're just going to get absolutely pumped in the playoffs, and they're not going to be contenders. I think the Chargers have a higher potential in a playoff scenario than the Raiders do, just personally. But either way, the Chargers stiffed themselves. Brandon Staley stiffed them by taking timeouts and things like that, which made the Raiders take the final field goal to win the game and put the Chargers out. But what it also did was let the Steelers in, and we've spoken about that, and that is fucking horrendous. The fact that the Steelers, like, by de facto make the playoffs when actually they shouldn't be going is not something that you want to see. And unfortunately, we are where we are.
And that's that.
And that is that. So, On the Clock is done, and we now go into a very pressing segment for the end of the season, because only one thing happens at the end of the season other than the playoffs, and that is end of season. It's in the name. Awards. End of season awards for players, Dave. We've spoken about this already in one of our podcasts. Mid-season, we gave our mid-season awards. But now, with every game locked in, all 17 games played by the individuals here and the teams involved, we now have some awards to give out. And I want to know if we're on the same page, or if we differ from any of the pundits that are out there, or maybe we predict the correct awards when they are given. So I'm going to throw some awards out to you, Dave. I want you to tell me what yours is. I'll tell you what mine is.
Go for it.
Can you please give me your comeback player of the year? So this is a player that had either not played last year or had been riddled with injuries and wasn't able to play a full season. Who would you now give this year a comeback player of the year?
I would give it to Dak Prescott.
Oh, dropping a Dak out for him, are you?
Yeah. 4,400 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and a 12-5 record, coming back from a horrendous broken ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my choice.
Fair play. So we start the awards season with our opinions not lining up. So okay. I can't take away from the fact that the stats are what they are, and Dak has been phenomenal. I this year would give the comeback player of the year to the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. Personally, Joe Burrow had a dislocated knee, ruptured MCL, ACL, like a really terrible injury in week 9 or 10 last year. And he has come back, considering it's only his second year in the NFL, and he has looked like as good as any fourth, fifth year quarterback. He's balled out. He's looked aggressive. He's looked like a proper franchise quarterback. And the fact that he didn't have much under his belt is why I'm giving it to him as opposed to Dak. Dak's had a few more seasons in the league. We know that he can throw a ball. We know he's got the, the opportunity to throw for yards and things like that. He is a good quarterback as much as he's a steaming pile of cow dung. I'm just going to give it to Burrow. He's had 4,611 yards, 34 touchdowns. He has had a lot of picks, 14 interceptions, passer rating of 108.3. The guy has done magic with what he's got to play with. So I'm giving it to Joe Burrow. Dak's probably going to win it, but I just thought I'd give it to Burrow because props.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I do like me some Burrow.
You like borrowing?
I like borrowing.
Okay, now can you please give me who you believe to be the defensive rookie of the year?
Parsons. I don't think it's particularly close to the defensive player of the year.
No, I'm also at Micah Parsons as well. So
yeah, he's had a load of sacks. He's been a difference maker on their defense, which was atrocious last year. So it's probably not that hard to stand out and be good. But he's clearly a defensive disruptor, and I wish we'd have picked him. Although he does seem a bit of an arsehole, but
yeah, no, I agree. He is a difference maker and an impact player, probably more than he is maybe an overall all-purpose amazing player. But he time will tell with that one. But he definitely has made a difference in the defense for the Cowboys this year, just getting pressures and rushing the quarterback. So Micah Parsons was a good pick for them in the rookie draft. On the flip side to that, can you give me your offensive rookie of the year?
Ja'Marr Chase.
Same. I've gone for Ja'Marr Chase too.
Yeah, he's I think he'll be getting votes for the offensive player of the year. I think if it's only because he's a rookie that he probably won't get that. It'd have been tight between him and obviously the person I've picked for that. So I don't think it's a bit of a no-brainer. But Ja'Marr Chase has had a great rookie season. I think it's helped massively that he's been partnered up with Joe Burrow, who's a very, very good young quarterback. Mm-hmm. So Ja'Marr Chase is my choice.
Me too. 1,400 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns. He has had some long, deep balls. He's been exciting to watch. That to me has to be taken into some form of account. Like if you're just a receiver, you could be a receiver who has a 1,200 yard season, but you're just catching slant boy routes and that kind of thing. But Ja'Marr Chase has shown that he can kind of do everything. You said last week, he can catch the ball in the middle of the field and run away from everyone. He can catch deep balls. He can catch little out routes and wide receiver screens. That he's going to have a bright future in the league, I think. Next, I'm going to go with. Can you tell me who your coach of the year is, Dave?
Zach Taylor. So from the Bengals.
Same.
Yeah, from the Bengals. They were last place in their division for the last 4 seasons or 3 seasons, and then to go from last for the last 3 seasons to go from last to first place in a division that's got the Browns, the Ravens, and the Steelers in, who are also the Browns obviously a historically dog turd franchise, but the Ravens and Steelers are good franchises, solid, and the Browns roster is probably the best or one of the best in the AFC. And to come top of that, I think is a real shout in your second season.
Definitely.
So I think he deserves it. Yeah, they might have only finished 10-7, but that would have been 11-6 if they'd have actually played any starters in the last game of the season.
Yep, absolutely agree. Don't need to say much more about that at all. 10-7 is a great record, and like you say, by giving the last game away, which would have been 11-6, finishing top of the AFC North, from only 2 years removed being bottom of the entire NFL and having the first draft pick in the draft. That's an amazing achievement for Zac Taylor, and he should get more credit because he's done amazing things with the team that he's got. So we're generally aligned thus far, Dave. It's going nice, and I think we might be aligned. Oh, I don't know, maybe all the way. So, defensive player of the year. Of all the players in the NFL, Dave, on defense, who is your defensive player of the year?
Has to be TJ Watt.
Has to be TJ Watt. I've gone for him too.
Yeah, 22.5 sacks. Time Michael Strahan's record. The man is a savage. He should have won it last year. Donald won it last year. But, I mean, Donald's obviously a fantastic player, but TJ Watt for the last 2 seasons, I think, has been the dominant premier defensive player. The man is an absolute savage.
22.5 sacks, 7 passes defended, 5 forced fumbles. He can do everything and more. And the fact that you've got an older brother who is, one of those, he's a Hall of Famer, going to go down in the record books anyway, and you're outplaying him by a considerable amount, is just amazing. So I agree with you absolutely, Dave. TJ Watt has single-handedly helped the Steelers somehow scrape into the position that they're in. He's terrorized people every week.
Yeah, and he would have broke the record if one of his sacks, which was a sack, didn't go as a tackle for a lost fumble. So
definitely. So well done, TJ Watt. You are our defensive player of the year. Are we aligned for our offensive player of the year, Dave?
Definitely. I'm going to say Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, okay. Now I've gone different.
Oh, okay. So I've gone for Jonathan Taylor. He's definitely not done enough to win the MVP. So, I mean, I don't think I'm giving him this out as a default and a little bit out of pity, because if Derrick Henry was playing, nobody would be speaking about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry was on pace to have well over 2,000 rush yards this year and demolish the amount of carries and stuff that he would have had. But without him there, Jonathan Taylor stepped up, and I think them two are in a bit of a class of their own at the minute. When it comes to rushing the ball, nobody was close to Jonathan Taylor this year. So no. I'll give him the nod.
No, that's fair, and I'm glad that you have, because it was on the flip of a coin for me. I've been obviously kind of chumming him all year, actually. I've signed him a few times in slap or sign, and I've been saying that I think, my prediction was that he would win Offensive Player of the Year when we did our wild predictions. He absolutely does deserve it with what he's done this year. But Derrick Henry would have obliterated him had he been healthy. So what I have done is I flipped the coin and I went with Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
So I went with Cooper Kupp, 16 touchdowns and 1,947 yards, which I think puts him second all time in receiving yards. I think it might be third, but if it's third or second, we're talking a handful of yards in it. I'm giving him credit where credit's due, because he's a totally different player to Megatron Calvin Johnson, who currently holds the record. He is a much smaller Ute, and he wouldn't be, and isn't winning his routes by being physical, so to speak. He's just been an amazingly reliable, elusive, smart, offensive player in the NFL this year, and to be able to outbeat some of the names that are on those lists and make yourself into the record books for one of the most receiving yards of all time, albeit with an extra game. I think Cooper Kupp has earned the right to take that Offensive Player of the Year from me.
Yeah, no, he's had a fantastic season, and to do it in his Davante Adams is so great because he's got Aaron Rodgers and they've played together for like the 6 years or whatever he's been in the league. Cooper Kupp, this is his first season playing with Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you how kind of clever he is, that he can get on the same page as the quarterback there. But he's had an amazing season. I watched a bit of like a montage of him. Who's the Hunter Renfrow, and Devontae Adams, basically when they're running at a defender, the way they shake them with their whichever way they're going to go is unbelievable. Them three, Keenan Allen's great at it as well, but they're just so amazing at being able to make the defender go the opposite way to where they're going by literally dipping the shoulder one way or the other. He's had a great season. He probably does deserve it, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, like you say, Jonathan Taylor has also been a very, very powerful and standout individual. One of the most standout individuals in any team. I think for me it was just like what you said. Actually, the last game of the season, him being held up because Carson Wentz is shit, just took the shine off it a little bit for me. And that's all. And then we go on to the final award of the season. I hope we align here, but I've got a feeling maybe we don't. Who is your MVP for the season, Dave?
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't align here.
You got Brady.
I've gone Tom Brady. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think Aaron Rodgers has had the. I would have said it would have been closer if he'd not been shut out.
If Tom Brady had not been shut out by the Saints. I mean, the Saints also did almost shut Rodgers out in the first game of the season too. Bear in mind.
They did. They did. Yeah, which is strange because the Giants beat them. No, you're right. I think the difference is that Rodgers came back the next game and had a quarterback rating of 145.6 and 3 touchdowns. But he finished. I think he's going to lead the league in quarterback rating. He's thrown 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Yeah,
Tom Brady's thrown 14, I think, isn't he?
12.
Yeah. So he's thrown 4 times the amount of.
Okay, give us this. If you've got them in front of you, I don't know if you have, but give us your stats. So I've gone Tom Brady, you've gone Rodgers. Yeah. Tom Brady had 43 touchdowns. Rodgers had
37.
Okay, Tom Brady had 12 interceptions. Rodgers had
4.
Dear, that's so good. Tom Brady had 5,316 yards.
4,115.
Okay, so he's thrown over 1,000 yards more. Passer rating of
111.9.
You see, that's monumental. Tom Brady had a passer rating of 102.1. Yeah. So obviously, I think Rodgers has been probably overall the more individually skilled player in that position, which I suppose when you're thinking about MVP, you are talking about one person. I think Tom Brady has done more for his team. I mean, he's thrown more touchdowns and more yards, but maybe that's because he's had to. Who knows? Rodgers has always kept the Packers in a winning position, right? So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, and I think Rodgers never seems to be coming from behind, does he? That's why he's not putting up those games where he's throwing for like 500 yards or whatever. But to put it in perspective, the last 3 years, Aaron Rodgers has thrown 13 interceptions in the last 3 years combined.
Wow.
I don't know. I think he's. You look at the receiving core. Tom Brady's got. So 2 things. I think Tom Brady set out at the start of the season to win the MVP, like Rodgers did last year, and I think it's fell apart a little bit with the amount of interceptions he's thrown. And then you look at the receiving core he's got. So he's got Mike Evans, Godwin. He had Antonio Brown and Gronk.
Yeah.
Rodgers has only really got Devontae Adams.
Yeah, it's true. It is true.
So I think it'll be tight.
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument for both. I think the few amount of interceptions that Rodgers has thrown is incredible. Just shows you how clinical he is with the ball. But I also think that ratio plays a part of it as well, of course. And Tom Brady's 12 is enough, but 43 touchdowns on top of it is still. You take that ratio all day, every day, wouldn't you, from a quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what it is. It's nearly.
It'd still be worse than Rodgers.
Rodgers is nearly one in. What his is over. Like it's be like 9 point something touchdowns to 1 interception. He's not thrown an interception in 7 weeks.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is like 1 in 4.
He threw two interceptions at the start. So you take that one game out against New Orleans, he's thrown 2 interceptions all year.
Yeah.
He'd be 37-2.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. So yeah, anyway, big respect for both of those players. Rodgers is by no means far down my list of MVP. He would be second. He would be. So if he ends up getting it 2 years in a row, I understand why. And those are our end of season awards, Dave. I think we aligned pretty nicely, but it's also nice to see that we've got a slight difference of opinion.
Yeah.
Lastly, we move in to the playoffs. The playoffs of the 2021 season. Ready, aim, fire is what we're calling this. And these guys are ready to aim and fire into the playoffs. We're going to give you the games, a little bit about them. They're all being played on Sky Sports this week. So this is our Sky Sports /playoff segment. Make sure you give these games a watch. If you're a football fan, or even if you're not, the playoffs are a different beast. Every game means everything. There's no 7-game best of like there is in basketball. There's no play one home game, play another home game like there is in soccer. In football, there's one game. You lose, you're gone. And so we start this Saturday with the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Vegas Raiders. Dave, what's happening in this one?
I think the Bengals are going to win. I think they're going to win comfortably. I mean, they can't get into a shootout the Raiders can't get into a shootout with the Bengals because they get absolutely crushed. But I think it'll finish, 23-10. I think it'll be quite big.
Nice. I think that the Bengals are going to put 30 points on the Raiders, and the Raiders maybe pop 21. So 21-30. I mean, this is a good game on paper. The Bengals finished at the top of the AFC North, and the Vegas Raiders have scraped through on a slight sort of technicality win this year, but they're still not to be messed around with. Their defense is sometimes good when it decides to turn up, but of the two, the Bengals should be taking this game. They deserve to win it. They deserve to move ahead of the Vegas Raiders in the playoffs. But it's definitely be a good one for a neutral, because you just never know in terms of upsets. It's being played in Cincinnati as well, so the Vegas Raiders do not have home field advantage of being in the city. I was going to say the city that doesn't sleep, but that's New York, isn't it? I just don't think they sleep in Vegas because they're all on drugs, but same principle, same goes. The next game is being played on Sunday, so we've got a plethora of games on Sunday, and this one is the Buffalo Bills taking on the New England Patriots.
Is that Saturday night though? I think it's Saturday night.
Is it Saturday night? Yeah, so Sunday morning at 1 a.m, but so technically Saturday night. So yeah, there's 2 games on that night. Buffalo Bills taking on New England Patriots. If you decide to stay up, or you've got insomnia, or you just love football like me and Dave do, we're definitely watching it. This one's on at 1 a.m. Who's taking the big dub?
I think the Bills are going to take it. I think you don't ever want to bet against Belichick, do you? But I think the Patriots aren't in good form at the minute. They've been recently beat by the Bills. So yeah, I just think the Bills keep Mac Jones to a single touchdown. I think they're going to go ahead early, and then it's going to put pressure on Mac Jones to throw the ball. That's not his game. So I think the Bills, I don't know. I only think they're going to score 1 touchdown. The Patriots. Really? Yeah. And I think it's going to finish like 27-7. I think it's going to be a beating.
Oof.
It's in Buffalo,
okay.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is in Buffalo. And 27-7. Okay. I think these are 2 teams that are maybe a little bit more evenly matched than we know, but also Mac Jones is not where he needs to be, and deservedly so. He was very close on my list to receiving Rookie of the Year, just because he's managed to take a team to the playoffs in his first year, which is not hard, not easy to do. But you could say that it's actually Belichick that's taken him there in the defense, but he's done enough. So I think that this one is going to be really close, and I think that it will come down to. I think it's going to come down to a field goal. I think it's going to be Bills 20, Patriots 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just got a feeling it's going to be a difficult one for the Bills. I don't think Belichick's going to make it easy for him to win. So we'll see what happens, but it's a great game to watch. A really good defense going against a really good offense. And actually the defense of the Bills is also amazing. As we said earlier, number 1 in the league, apparently. Okay. Next game. The GOAT, the reigning champs, the reigning Super Bowl winners, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking on the San Francisco 49ers. This is being played at the Buccaneers' house. Niners going in off a huge win against the Rams. What's your thoughts?
Bucks Eagles.
No, Bucks Niners. Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, it's Bucks Eagles.
Yeah.
Fucked it.
Niners Cowboys.
Well, I messed that one up, listeners. My bad. The way it's laid out on my screen here looks very odd. So I'll rephrase that. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles in Tampa. The Eagles, who have just been smashed by the Cowboys and aren't coming off a statement win, are taking on the Super Bowl champs.
I think that the Bucks are going to win, and it's going to be 31-24.
Okay, so the Eagles are going to stay relevant, or is that going to be garbage time?
I think they played him pretty close at the start of the season, so.
Okay.
Hurts is an annoying quarterback, and he's not going to be able to throw the ball, so he's just going to have about 150 rush yards.
Yeah, that could
They're
happen.
running the ball really well at the minute, the Eagles. I think they're number 1 in the league at running the ball, so.
They are. The Bucks are a good run-stop team, though. Okay, cool. I mean, it's the playoffs, so you never know. I think the Bucks are going to dispatch the Eagles in this one. I think it will be 35 to the Eagles 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get anywhere close. I think Tom Brady is going to turn it on. As you mentioned, he can do in the past. He probably isn't even been asked about anything until he gets in the playoffs. I think the Bucks switch it on and they take the Philadelphia Eagles, who are shit, to the cleaners. Next game, San Francisco 49ers are taking on the Dallas Cowboys at the Cowboys' house in Dallas. AT&T Stadium. Niners coming off a statement win. Cowboys coming off a statement win. Where's this one going, Dave?
I'm going probably against the green, but I'm going to say the Niners, the 49ers, are going to win. As Dappy would say, Niners are going to win. I think the 49ers are going to win, and I think they're going to beat the Cowboys. They've got a good defensive front, the Niners have, and I think they're going to smash up the old boy Cowboy offensive line.
Nice.
And I'm going to say the Niners win 24-21. Win by a field goal.
Okay. I'm going to say that I think you're right, Dave. I think you're right. I think the Niners are going to impose their will on a Cowboys team that is going to find it difficult to stop the run. I think they're going to do what they do best at the Niners and play little shitty screens. They're going to run it down the necks. They've got the defense that can handle Dak Prescott. They don't necessarily have the secondary that can handle the firepower that the Cowboys have got. But I think this will be a really entertaining one. And I think there'll be some points in it as well. Albeit limited to the amount of rushing yards that they can achieve. But I think this one's going to go to I reckon it'd be 28 to the Niners and 24 to the Cowboys.
Okay.
Two more games. The Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is at Arrowhead. AFC wildcard. Who's winning?
I'm gonna go with
you think the Steelers, don't you?
I think Big Ben's winning the Super Bowl.
No!
I'm gonna go Steelers, and I think TJ Watt, Casey Hayward, I reckon they're gonna absolutely bully Mahomes.
I reckon it's the way to do it.
And I think that Najee Harris is going to have 700 push attempts for 14 yards. Big Ben's going to throw for... No, I think the Steelers are going to win, and they're going to win 28-21.
Fucking hell. I mean, that is a hell of a prediction, Dave.
I don't think the Steelers will put 28 points up all season.
No. But... Okay. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I can see that happening. The
Chiefs have played them. The Chiefs have played them already this season.
They have. They beat them.
36.
Yeah, they destroyed them as well. But this could be a slightly different Steelers team. I think TJ Watt might have been injured when they were playing the Chiefs last time. So I think he'll make a difference. I'm still holding firm with the Chiefs. I still think they'll win. I think the Steelers will put up maybe a few more points than they did before, which was 10. I reckon the Steelers go 17 and the Chiefs score 32.
Okay.
And then the last game is a game that has been played many a time in the NFC West. Many a time. Both teams in the same division, number 1 and 2 in that division. The LA Rams are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This one's being played in LA at the home SoFi Stadium of the Rams, bringing in the Arizona Cardinals.
The Rams win because Kyler Murray has not looked good, and neither of the Cardinals. So the Rams win 24-14.
Good score. I'm just going to change it slightly. I think the Rams win 24-17. I think the Cardinals maybe chuck a field goal in somewhere early where they think they need the points and it's just not going to be enough. But I agree. I think the Rams taking on the Cardinals. Rams have looked like they can finish strong. They got edged on the weekend by the Niners, but they're going to want redemption. They're going to want to pump the Cardinals. The Cardinals got beat by the Seahawks, who were bottom of the NFC West. I think they're going to be coming off, not feeling great. James Conner will not be able to do what he's done to other teams, to the Rams. Aaron Donald will sit on him, eat him, spit him out. And outside of James Conner, who's had about 19 touchdowns this year, the Cardinals don't look fantastic. So I agree with you, Dave, and that's all she wrote.
That's that.
That is it. That is the end of the playoff games, and that is the end of this week's podcast. So just want to take a massive thank you for listening all the way through the regular season, as I hope you all have. It's been a pleasure to bring you the On the Clock segments and the slap or signs each week. We are going to continue these podcasts into the playoff run and then into the off season, but we're going to be cutting things down, and obviously with many less games to play, we'll be talking and specifically focusing on the playoff games. And we want to say a big thank you for supporting us this season so far. We'll continue for the next few weeks into the Super Bowl. And thank you very much. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.
Enjoy the weekend.
Peace out.
Bye.